Hey, welcome to Sabine's Common Sense. I'm your host, Sabine the Purpose Lawyer. Thank you for listening and thank you for allowing me to be on purpose. So today we're going to be talking about taking care of what you start and the 5+ year marathon that is settling Prince's estate. So we're going to get into that. And then I have the pleasure of interviewing Rosalyn Ortega-Elie. She is also known as Urban Teach. She's an amazing woman. She is an educator. She is an entrepreneur. She's a real estate investor. She's doing all the things, and she's going to tell us all about how she did that, right? And so, okay, great. Let's get into this whole Prince saga. I'm tired of talking about Prince, y'all. I roll my eyes every time, but I know that it's necessary. It's definitely relevant. So, long story short, for those of you who don't know his story, he passed away in 2016, did not leave any sort of plan for his estate, like none, zero, no will, no trust, nothing. And so because of that, his estate has been in court for over 5 years, racking up millions of dollars in legal fees, which the attorneys don't care about. But it's definitely, I feel like part of the conspiracy of why he didn't have a plan in place. And so not only that, part of the reason why it's been taking so long is, one, valuing his estate, because his estate encompasses intellectual property, which is the copyright of his music. And so because he is, so well known and now he's also not with us, all that stuff has to be evaluated. You need appraisers, you need this and that. But more importantly, or the bigger thing, is that they didn't even know who his heirs were, right? Of course, once he passed away, a whole bunch of people came out the woodwork. And so he had like 2 sets of family members who were saying that they were his actual siblings. But long story short, they finally determined that he actually had 6 half siblings. And that's the other thing. Who knows if he wanted his half siblings to inherit his estate? Like how many of us have half siblings that were just like, I don't even know who these people are, right? I can raise my hand to that one. So, so there's that. So finally they determined that he has half siblings, and now those siblings have been, I guess, given a hypothetical share, right? Because nothing has really been distributed yet. And so this company now, Primary Wave, comes into the picture and is like, yeah, so we want to buy up your interests in the estate so that we could do what we want with it. And some of the siblings, 3 of the older siblings, are like, no, we know the value in this. We're not selling. We're holding strong. But 3 of the younger siblings ended up selling their stake in the estate. So Primary Wave now owns 42% of his estate, which means they have basically a controlling vote of what to do with his assets. That's his name, his music, his publishing rights, his Paisley Park, where his recording studio. And so now they own a great share of this thing. And this company actually buys up the ownership of music royalties or music rights of individuals such as Prince. They also own Whitney Houston. They also own Bob Marley and Ray Charles. And so what they do is then they exploit it for TV or movies or film, et cetera, and they make money off of it for generations, which is likely something that Prince would have wanted his family to do if he wanted his family to have it at all. But now, they've sold it to this company. And I said they sold out because I posted this on Instagram and said they sold out. And it's like, that's why, because one, this company is not worried about his interests, right? His legacy, I should say, keeping Prince's legacy alive and what he was all about. And I found out when I was doing the research for this that they put out an album, which I was hesitant to listen to, but I did try to listen to 2 tracks. And when I say it is trash, it is trash, straight for the garbage. And so I know that it's not on Prince's level. I said, I can't even do this. I'm not even going to listen to the rest of this because that's not Prince. And then I learned that he was like, he didn't want anybody to hear any of this music that he had in his vault because he did not think it was good. Like, it was not on his level. So that's one indication that they're not going to do what's good for Prince's legacy. And then the other reason is that they basically sold a stream of income for a finite amount of money. So I don't know what the exact amount is that they got. That wasn't disclosed, but we know that it's not what it's worth, right? And it said that this company, Primary Wave, they do pay a lot because they want to drive up the value of what they're buying, essentially. And so that is going to be worth more. And so who knows? My whole thing with this is that, what Prince could have done is to make it much more easier. One, he could have said, who does he want his assets to go to, right? That could have been done by doing a trust and saying that maybe he wanted to give some of his money to his siblings. And maybe if he didn't have liquid cash in his estate, he could have put an insurance policy in place that could have paid out to his trust, that could have given a payday to his family members, but would have secured his intellectual property, right? So that it could stay in trust. It could be managed by somebody who's savvy on how to manage these things, so the family member doesn't have to worry about knowing what to do with all this stuff. And then it could have, gone on forever. Maybe he could have left some money in a foundation where he could have benefited, someone who looks like him, maybe in music, maybe in arts, maybe in mental health, whatever it is that he was passionate about. That could have been going on forever in some sort of foundation. And when he had like over $200 million that was the value when he passed away, right? And so when you have such a large estate like that, you're looking at a lot of estate taxes. So had he left most of it to charity, to his own charitable foundation, that could have been tax-free. So now there's going to be taxes paid on the estate. So it's going to be like at least 40% less than what it is now. You got the legal fees, and then you got the family members selling out. So it's really just a big mess. So the takeaway is, take care of what you start. This man lived his whole entire life pouring out his heart and his art to all of us, left a great mark, and now it's just becoming a huge mess. So take care of what you start. And now let's get into the interview. Hi, Rosalind.
Hello, Sabine.
Thank you so much for being here. It's such a pleasure to see you in person.
Aw, thank you for having me.
Sure.
I'm excited.
So first we just were Instagram friends.
Yes.
And now we've seen each other 3 times in the past 2 months.
Right. It's that's how it happens usually, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So I had the pleasure recently of being a panelist at one of your events.
Yes.
Rosalind is an amazing, amazing woman. She's a mom, a wife, a educator. She's just how I found you on social media is because you've been just posting a lot of educational stuff for people who's interested in getting into real estate, but just very sort of understandable. And then if your personality and your energy matches how you come across on
That's
Instagram.
Good to know.
Yeah.
That's the first time I ever heard that.
Really?
That's great.
Well, good. I like to be first.
Yes.
I like to be first. So awesome. So what brought you to doing real estate? How did you get involved in that?
So I rented for most of my adult life, just like a lot of people, right? And I worked in New York City and paid a lot of money in rent. 10 years ago, I found myself divorced with a 3-year-old. So we ended up renting a 1-bedroom apartment.
Okay. In the city?
In the city.
Okay.
And just one night, I started adding up the numbers. How much rent have I paid in all this time?
Right.
And I just decided that it was time to buy a rental. Well, buy a multifamily. Okay. So I wanted to buy something that I could live in and also have rental income coming in to help me with the bills.
Right. Was there fear involved in that part of it?
Yes. I mean, of course. I was I didn't know anyone in real estate really. I didn't have an attorney. I didn't have I didn't have a contractor, a handyman. I didn't have any of that. But I understood the value of owning properties and the value of owning your own asset, right?
Okay.
So I started driving around certain areas of Jersey on the weekends when I was off.
You knew you wanted to be in Jersey?
Yes. So I knew that I wanted to be in Jersey. I'm from the Bronx originally.
BX.
BX. But I knew it was just too expensive for me to find a 2 or 3 family home. So I ventured into Jersey. I've always liked Jersey just because, more space, you get more for your money kind of thing with the yard and things like that.
Right.
So I ran into a 2-family home that was from an older couple. The lady had just passed away. The gentleman was in his 80s. And I passed by the home one day and he had a for sale sign on. I stopped to talk to him. And we just kind of clicked. And he's like, if you want to buy my house, I will sell it to you.
Oh, wow.
You are
just like out of the blue.
Yeah, because he was being very like sentimental about it. So he didn't want to just pick anyone. So he goes, why don't you go get, your paperwork in order, figure out how much you can afford. And I was like, oh, okay. So I got a pre-approval. And then a few weeks later, I ended up buying the house.
Wow.
Yeah. That's how I got started.
That seemed like it was like meant to be.
Right? Yes. Yes. So I got very lucky with that. It wasn't in the best condition. So I did have to make, a couple of updates.
Okay.
For the first year and a half.
And you did the repairs yourself?
No, I did the numbers myself. So I have this weird talent of, being really good with budgeting and numbers and savings, things like that. So I was able to figure out the size of a room and how much flooring I would need. I would go and get all my own materials, and then I hired a handyman to do the work for me. Okay. So I broke it up into pieces. So I did the living room first, kitchen, bathrooms.
Like over time?
Over time, yeah. So in a year and a half, I was able to rehab the 2 floors and the basement as well. And then cash out some of that money and continue
and do it all
invest.
Over again.
Yes, exactly.
Wow. So what kind of gave you the courage to just be like, okay, I'm just going to go buy property now. I'm a single mom. I don't know anything about home ownership. What about your family? Did your family own homes?
No.
Okay.
So my parents rented their whole lives, my siblings as well. I have my grandma that owned property, but that's back at home in the Dominican Republic. Okay. But here in the States, it wasn't something that was in my circle, immediate circle.
Was it something that you thought about, or did it just happen that way? Like all of a sudden you're like, I'm a homeowner now.
Yeah, so I just made the decision, I just knew that I hated throwing my money away. Every time I signed that check to drop it off on my landlord's box, and I would be like, how many hours did I have to work for this? It was just every year, and every time those increased notices came in the mail, I was like, why am I paying another 4% in rent and I'm not getting anything for it? So it was just one of those light bulb moments when I just decided I had to do it. You had to do it.
Yeah. Awesome. That's beautiful. So tell me about you growing up in the Bronx.
Yes. So it was tough, but I had a stable home, which I have to be grateful for. Good. So my dad was a cab driver for 20 years. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. Okay. I grew up in a really rough block. Okay. But my parents, they kept me in line. Okay. My dad would be like, let me not drive by the block and see you on top of a car. He would just not have that. So I had some ground rules that I had to follow. Right. In high school, my best friend in freshman year had a baby. Okay. So I had another best friend when I was a junior, also have a baby. So it was kind of what I grew up seeing around me. Right. Living tough environment. I had friends that went to Rikers. I had friends that, got picked up all the time. But my parents kept me in line. They knew how to do it. So I was grateful for that. So I grew up in the Bronx. I left the BX when I was 19. Okay. And I moved to Harlem. I just knew that I had to leave my environment to see
something else. Yeah. So it was almost like you were always thinking there's something more that's out there for me.
Totally. Yeah. So I wasn't afraid to make a move or try something new. I always knew that as long as I had a job and income, I had the flexibility of doing certain things. Right. So at the beginning, of course, in Harlem, I had a roommate, just like a lot of us, when we first venture out on our own. Yeah. Had a roommate. I did a lot of self-learning things. I learned how to prepare taxes on my own. I learned how to do stock trading in my early 20s. So I was always focused on trying to learn new things. Since I didn't go to college, I just went.
Is it that you felt like, I just don't like paying for things. I want to learn how to do it myself.
Yeah, that too. Okay. Yeah, definitely that too. Because when I started working, I would go, obviously, to someone to get my taxes done. And it was just a 5-minute process. And I always ask the person, how are you doing this so fast? What's the number system? What are you doing? So I learned how to do it on my own. And then after that, I started doing it on my own.
Yeah. I used to feel like that when I used to go get my taxes done too. And that's the difference between just somebody's preparing your taxes and somebody who's educating you on it.
Right.
And I used to be this person does it. And then the supervisor will come and then finalize it. And I'd be
exactly. Yeah. And not only that, but waiting. I would have to sit in an office and wait for hours during tax time.
I used to actually go to the Bronx to do my taxes.
Yeah? I wonder if we went to the same place.
Maybe.
So that drove me a little crazy. So I learned how to do that. So I started making some side money during tax season.
Nice.
Like my friends at work, things like that.
Right.
So I always been kind of like a little hustler on the side.
Right.
But, very subtly. And then, 4 years ago, I decided that I wanted to start my own full-fledged business. So that's how Urban Tea started.
Oh, wow. So tell me about that, because you were working full-time.
Yes.
You had never done any sort of entrepreneurship other than
like the side stuff.
Okay,
Yeah,
so I guess that's entrepreneurship.
Yeah, that's
for
the
real.
beginning of it, I think.
Yeah.
For sure.
And so you're working, and how does this passion come about or the idea of Urban Teach?
So it was really crazy because I was in a corporate environment. I worked in hospitality before. So when I would talk to my coworkers, usually older than me, and I would ask them questions like, hey, are you ever looking to own a home? Like, let's say, right? And they would be like, oh no, it's too much trouble. I don't know. I don't have a realtor. I don't know how to start. I don't even know if I qualify. Like, there was a lot of things people didn't know. And it kind of shocked me that, like, full-grown adults,
they weren't
making
even
good
thinking
money,
about it.
They weren't even thinking about certain things that I would be really shocked about. So then I started with just an idea to have a financial literacy course, like a freebie course. I put something together, about credit and savings and budgeting, some of the budgeting apps I was using to help me save money.
Right.
And I just did like a freebie webinar. I figured it out. And then I was like, let me open it up on Instagram. And I remember having like 200 followers and just, pushing out the freebie all the time.
Right. And this was just out of passion for educating people.
Yeah, exactly. And also feeling frustrated. Like, there's a lot of us that really don't know this stuff. And in school, I had friends that graduated college with a bachelor's degree in education or anything else, marketing or liberal arts. And they still really didn't understand how credit works or how interest worked with credit cards or like just simple stuff that I thought
I knew nothing when I came out of college. So, it's just something that's just not taught, and nobody knows until they start going through it.
Exactly.
At one point when I was in college, I, like everyone else, ruined my credit. Ran up all my credit, and then when I realized that, I went to go get, I think I went to get a car, and my credit was bad. And I was like, that was the first time I knew, like, oh, okay, there's a problem with this.
Right.
And I had to learn how to fix my own credit. And that's how I realized that people just don't know this. They just have bad credit and they think like, okay, well, now I have bad credit.
Exactly. They just live with it.
They just live with it,
I think there's a way to fix it. And then you have another misconception where your parents or your grandparents are like, don't use credit cards.
Right.
So people are like, I don't want to have a credit card. I don't want to owe anyone. But then you end up not having credit.
Yeah.
So
and you run into the same problem.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you don't have no credit, so we can't lend to you because we don't know.
Exactly.
It's terrible. But
so there was a lot of that going on. So I did, I remember calling a couple of venues in Harlem and Washington Heights. And a friend of mine worked for a small hotel in the Heights. And he's like, you know what? We have a small room. If it's 25 people, why don't you just give me like X, like a very small amount, and have a free event here.
Okay.
Like, just invite people to come over and talk to them about financial literacy or real estate or whatever you want to talk about. So I did it, and it was like packed, jam-packed.
Wow.
Standing room. There wasn't enough chairs. And then after that session, I got so inspired. I was like, I really like how this felt.
Right.
A lot of people found so much value in it. So then I just decided to make it part of like the business, to have in-person seminars or events, workshops, things like that.
Right. So that's when the business was born. That's when you was like, oh, this is a business. I can actually like do this thing.
Right. I was like, oh, wow, this could work. It wasn't just me in my little crazy head, like coming up with this plan.
All these people want to know what I have to say.
Right. So it was really, it was definitely fulfilling. And then that just...
And you weren't nervous, like just to be like, I'm going to just invite a whole bunch of strangers and just speak?
It was nerve-wracking. Okay. And my 5-year-old was one years old then when it started. I remember staying up the night before because she had a cold. And you know how babies are.
Yeah.
She was up all night. She couldn't breathe. She was coughing. And I was like, oh my gosh, should I cancel this thing? Should I still go? So I remember showing up and I had bags under my eyes. I was so tired. But then after I was like, you know what? It was worth it.
And your energy came, right?
Yeah. It was good. It definitely was meant to be. So that kind of kicked everything off.
Yeah. What do you think is the most challenging part of having started this business, or is it just like the best thing ever?
It's still challenging. I mean, balancing everything out with social and marketing and talking to other presenters, like organizing stuff, right? Then my online classes and sending out emails and answering questions. And then if my little one is sick, that's it. My whole day is gone because I can't really sit there and do much but tend to her, So it's a lot. Yeah. But I'm happy with it. I don't complain. I just say it's just part of the game.
Yeah, because you have grown it to be so successful that you're actually able to leave your 9-to-5.
Yeah. So last year during COVID, that was March, where of course, companies started closing down and hotels specifically. Okay. The hotel industry took a huge hit and they started closing down. Some didn't open or just foreclosed altogether. Wow. Others did open, but with half the staff. So I was with my company for 11 years. Okay. I won't say the name of the company. No problem. But largest hotel company in the U.S. Okay. So I was in the corporate department, revenue management. And once I found out that they were thinking about closing, my boss was like, listen, we're going to close, but we don't know when we're going to open. So, we'll put everyone on furlough. This is the list of the employees, that are not going to be able to work, or you can go back to the corporate offices, but it's going to be at a 45% salary reduction.
Yikes! What's a 45%?
Yeah.
Is that even possible?
Well, they did it. They did it for a lot of people. A lot of people. So I was so bitter about that piece because in my mind, I'm like, how is it an entire industry is hurting for a month or 2 or 3, and they're making these big decisions to just slice everybody up, right? When they've had decades of making money. Right. These hotels make so much money every year.
They took the opportunity to get rid of people who are making a lot of money. Right. So that when everything turns around, they can, have more money in their pocket.
That's right. That's right. So luckily for me that I've had the rental properties, I've had money in my stock account. Awesome. I've always had other sources of income coming in. So when that happened, it was more of it hurt me to my heart because I was like, okay, I was in the industry so long. But then I also saw it as an opportunity to just do this full time.
Yeah. So that's important right there, that you have other streams of income going for you, whatever free time you have, that you build something, even if it's not a business, but like you said, investments, your real estate. So you have other things. You're not relying on someone to feed your child.
Exactly.
Basically.
Yeah, totally. And that's what I always preach about is, whatever it is that you're passionate about, whether it's, makeup or jewelry or fashion or numbers, just pick something and develop a product, a service, something that can give you, that extra income. Yeah. Because one day, an employer is just an employer. You're just a number on a spreadsheet. That's what I tell people all the time.
It is so true. It's so true. When you think about how they could just be like, okay, you got to go now. Right. And so we're going to move on. But also being on the having employees myself, I do understand that there are sometimes decisions that you have to make that just has to be for the best interest of the company. Yes. And so, on both sides of the coin there, but still you as the employee needs to make sure that you have your plan B in place. Right. Because
very important. So so the same thing on my side, now I'm hiring someone as well to work with me in Urban Teach. So yes, as an employer, it should be about the numbers, right? Because it is a business at the end of the day. But I want people to be empowered to still say, I can leave my entire livelihood in the hands of a job. They have to have some kind of other source of income. And rental properties is the best way to do that. Right. Because you don't have to leave your job to buy, a 1-bedroom or 2-family. Even, I wouldn't say Airbnb so much because that requires a little more work. But, a rental property that you can have a handyman go there if you need anything. Right. It's much easier to manage than, a full-blown storefront, let's say, to develop a second income.
Awesome. Yeah. So what's your, I guess, most asked question that people ask you? And when it comes to owning real estate for the first time?
How do you deal with difficult tenants? I get that a lot.
Yeah, a lot of people don't want to invest just because, especially in real estate, because of the fact of the tenant issues that come with that.
Yeah.
Sorry to cut you
go
off.
ahead.
Because this story pains me so much. So my childhood home that I grew up in, it was a 2-family home in Queens, and it had like a walk-in basement. So you literally could rent the basement. It was completely above ground. And my family sold it for like $400,000, and it's now worth like about $800,000 or $9. Okay. And they sold it. They purchased it for like 60, like back in the day.
Oh,
so they made good money on it, but
the
fact that they sold it and now it's like worth double what they sold it for, it just like hurts my heart every time.
I know, that sounds painful. Yeah,
but me, I didn't want tenants at the time. Right. You know, I was like in my early 20s or late 20s, and I had that mindset like, oh, I don't want to deal with tenants. I don't, you know, but it's not a good mindset to have. But go ahead.
So, but I always do say that being a landlord is not for everyone.
That's
you
true.
know, you got to have the personality for it. You got to be patient. You got to be able to understand the other person's point of view. I'm very numbers driven, but I also know that you need the people skills, you know? So if you're like, and I put a post about this the other day, I was like, if you're petty about $10 and if you're, you know, if you argue about small things, then being a landlord is not for you. Okay. Because there's going to be little things that you're going to have to encounter. Right. Because people have different personalities, you know? So it's very hard to like manage that process. So I do have a friend that is like, I'm never going to be a landlord because I'm very petty. I will argue about everything. Right. And I just don't like people like that. So she already knows that. So I'm like, you know what? You're right. Don't get into the business because it's yes, you got to have some kind of like understand psychology to deal with other people a little bit when it comes with your money. What
do you say about like just getting someone else to manage it, like a management company or just someone that you hire who could be the face of dealing with the clients?
Yes, so you can do that as well. Obviously, there's management companies everywhere. For me, the tricky part is finding a good one. Okay, right, and
not then, equal.
Yes, finding a good one, and then making sure you're okay with that percentage going to them from your profit. So I think if the numbers make sense, then yes, it would make sense to have someone else manage your property. Okay. But what tends to happen is, you know, you'll hire a management company. They'll give you a percentage that you have to pay them for, percentage of the rent. And then you'll find that there's other things that they don't cover. So you still end up having to
pay them out of pocket. Yeah. I've had to review a few of those for clients. And yes, there is a lot of additional fees in addition to the percentage that they take. So, and you know, if you should have it negotiated because it is negotiable, but at the same time, definitely read the fine print on everything that you're paying out for that.
Absolutely. Yes. But it's definitely an option. So for someone that's like, you know, I'm just going to put my money in there and I'll wait on my cash flow minus the management fee and they're okay with it, then, you know, go for it.
Then go for it. Yeah, for sure. And so do you have like a tip on dealing with difficult tenants, or you just think because of your personality and how you know how to deal with people and that's how it works for you?
I think a little bit of both. So, but I also have processes. So let's say things like maintenance requests or late payment issues. You know, I try to make sure everything is in writing. I just follow like SOPs from like the business world. You know? Make sure everything's in writing, you know.
What's an SOP? Just
our standard operating procedure. Okay. So there's certain things that I follow. So, you know, everything has to be in writing. I don't accept partial payments, things like that. Okay. You know, make sure I let them know, hey, if you're going to be late in a specific month due to whatever, just communicate with me. Send it to me in an email, send it to me on a text. I try not to be too friendly.
Okay, I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, I think some people take that wrong. And they can use it against you to get their way kind of thing.
Yeah, because I happen to be nice, right?
I know you are.
And so, but that comes with challenges. And I'm not a pushover, but people can think that, you know? Right. So how do you deal with that? Like, when are you fierce?
Well, you know, when I have that sixth sense of someone trying to push my buttons a little bit, then I just kind of like, you know, then it kicks in.
Then it's like, I'm from the Bronx.
Yeah.
Don't get it twisted.
From the Bronx, yes.
Yes, no, it's true. You got to have both sides, you know? Right. It's just like you can only let people go so far. And I'm like that too. I don't know. I mean, I definitely have fallen into situations where I feel like somebody took advantage, but at the same time, I've learned to be like, okay, this is not someone you be nice with. You know what I mean? This is someone who you gotta, pump your brakes on.
Exactly. Yeah. So I always tell people, be very aware of emotional intelligence, like your traits versus the other person that you're dealing with, because sometimes the way you communicate might not be the best way, depending on the other person's personality.
Definitely. Personality types.
Yeah,
totally. You can study personality type. I mean, you don't have to study it, but you can read it.
Yes.
Read up about them and know the type of person that you're dealing with. Like, I know when I'm dealing with a type D personality or type A personality.
Me too. Yeah, I learned those classifications.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I forget what the assessment is called, but yeah, you can learn how to deal with people who are different personality types. So that way I know if I'm dealing with somebody who's like type D, I got to get straight to the point, because they don't want like my backstory and they're just like numbers. Let me know how long it's going to take, this and that, and that's it. So there's all different kinds of people, and you can balance that with your personality with theirs, if you understand who you're dealing with.
Exactly. Very, very important in this business. Even, and more so because we're women.
Yeah.
So I always try not to bring that up, but it's a legit, thing.
Yeah.
Like we normally will get tested, I think, more than when men are in the same shoes doing the same type of transaction, because they see us as, maybe someone else gave her the property. Like she's managing it for her husband or her dad. They don't see you as the head or the face of the thing. Yeah. So you will get tested for sure.
Do you ever use that to your advantage?
Not
really.
No, not really. I think I've always been like, I want you to see me for my worth. Like, not necessarily like I'm a woman, so cut me some slack. I've never really used that before.
Yeah, no.
Even though some people would think that, I think. They're like, oh, you're a pretty face. You can just, do this. And then I'm like, no, cut down to business.
I mean, like in the sense that if they think it's not yours, you're just like, well, there's nothing I could do, like as if.
I haven't. I really haven't. Okay. Yeah. I haven't had to do that yet. I think that with volume, when the volume gets here, maybe I would push it over to like, I'm just an operations person. I don't own it. Talk to the owner and give him like a different email. Email that way.
Yeah. So how do you find like balance in everything that you're doing, like with the business, with parenting, and all that, and your wife?
Yeah. So it's tough. I mean, it's tough. I give up a lot of fun time. I don't go out as often as I would like to. This is actually an outing for me, so this is great. Made my week. Right. I'm normally at home and like behind my desk, doing stuff or running around Home Depot or this or that. But I schedule myself with everything. I do my online grocery shopping. I don't say yes off the top. So I think that's the number one thing that I learned. Because at the beginning, a couple of years ago, people would call me and say, hey, do you want to come over on Tuesday? Do you want to do this on Saturday? And I would always say yes.
Okay.
Yes. And then come to find out, it was just clogging my schedule up with other things that were not in line with my business and goals, right?
Good, yeah.
So I make sure that I lined up my day. Usually Sunday nights, I'll sit and do my schedule for the week.
Okay.
So I know what I'm doing every single day. And then, of course, you get the pop-up,
things
the pop-up things, right?
Like Sabine calling you, like, can you come?
Yeah. Listen, that was a great call, okay? But I think organization's key, especially with kids, because, again, you got to leave room for those days that things might happen.
Yeah, definitely. I was actually, you said everything that I was thinking, because I was reading something about time management, and they were basically saying how you really can't say yes to everything. Like, you can't say yes to more things than you can actually handle. So if you say no to most things and whatever can fit in your schedule, that's what you can do, then that's what you do.
And, I used to feel really guilty about it before. I would be like, oh, but this is such a great person. I really should go. Then I'm like, I just spent 5 hours, 1 hour to get there, 4 hours there. And then now my work piled up. Or now I have to work on a Sunday to make up for the,
Yeah.
So I think organization is huge, especially with kids. You have to, everything has to be planned. As much as you can do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what is your envision for your company? Like, where are you looking to go with it?
So I have a couple of different things I'm working on.
Okay.
I would love to own a learning studio. So I'm looking at spaces to potentially do that.
Yeah. We're putting it out there. It's happening.
Yes, it's out there. I'm getting certified with minority women business owners.
Oh, awesome.
So I'm doing that in the next month.
So that's with
the state, with New Jersey.
With New Jersey?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
And you can also do New York, but it's a little longer of a process.
Okay.
So I'm going to start with Jersey and then move over.
To New York. So just for people who don't know what that is, as a business owner, you can get certified with the city and or the state. And when you do that, you are now open for opportunities that they have when they're hiring for different services. So they hire education all the time.
Right.
You know, food, all types of talents and products and stuff they hire for. So if your business falls into those categories, you can certainly take advantage of it.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's just a great thing to have, you know, because your business will get added in certain publications. It will get added in certain you know, whatever the state is trying to invest money in when it comes to that sector, you would be listed in that category. So there's no cost to do that.
Right.
But you do have to file the paperwork and you have to have like certain requirements before doing that.
Yeah, so it could be a little bit tedious, but it is worth it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So the learning studio portion of it is more, I want to create a small space where, you know, moms can come and meet and talk about finances.
Almost like a mastermind space.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So just because I felt like during COVID, it's when I did most of my online courses and developed a lot of things online, virtual. But I miss the in-person sector of it so much that I'm like, I need to create a space where that's my regular space to
Can
teach.
still happen. Yeah.
So I'm looking at that and then doing the exact same thing in Spanish.
Okay,
for the
awesome.
Latino community.
So how has this blessed the Latino community? Because I only see the English side. But have you felt like you've made an impact, or the impact that you want to start seeing in your community?
Yes. So yes, but I don't do enough of it.
Okay.
So I'm getting a lot of like, hey, when is this happening? When is that happening?
Okay.
Can you do a course on this? And again, time is, you know, it's hard to manage all of that.
Yeah.
So that's why having the learning studio will help with that, because I can have other speakers come and teach certain material.
And then multiplying yourself. You're also hiring.
Right.
So
Exactly.
you'll get, One of the biggest mistakes I always say I made when I started my business is I waited too long to hire. So I always tell people, like, hire as soon as you can. Like, as soon as you can. Yeah.
And the thing is, again, it's only one of us, right? One of you, one of me.
And there's so much you could do.
So much you can do. And then scaling as well is an issue if you don't delegate.
Yeah.
So you have to like find a way to free up more time. So I have all these ideas, but I can't implement them if I don't have the help.
Yeah,
So.
Exactly. And it's like, I used to like really, when you get to the point where you know you need to hire, you feel like you're the worst. You're like, why can't I get everything done? But it's because you're trying to do too much, you know?
Right.
You're trying to do too much. And then when you do have people, you're like, oh my God, how much I can get done in a day. It's like amazing.
Yes. And then you have time to think of a high level, right?
Exactly.
So there's a lot of high level things that as a business owner, you have to think about, you know, scaling, the numbers, profitability. Are you paying your taxes on time? Are you like reinvesting?
Reconciling, all those things.
So like there's days when I want to go drive a new market. So I want to go to PA and drive around a new market so I can buy my next property, but I don't have the time to do that.
Right.
So there's certain things that I have to start delegating.
Right.
The administrative stuff for sure.
Okay. Are you mostly invested in New Jersey?
In New Jersey, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm looking at South Jersey now and possibly PA.
Okay.
For sure.
Awesome. Do you want to say like how many properties you have? Or?
I usually don't.
Okay, that's no problem.
I have a funny story about that, though.
Okay, go ahead.
So I always tell people, I always say, growing where I grew up, if you said how much you had or how much you owned or what you were worth, you would probably get robbed. You know,
I get what you're saying.
And the other thing is, if you're out there talking about what you own and what you have, make sure the IRS numbers on paper match.
Always equal that.
You know what I mean?
I hear you.
I'm just putting it out there.
Yeah. No, I hear you. No, and that's totally professional to not want to. And I agree with you. Sometimes it's even just for people who you know. You're just like, that's too much information.
So people that I know, of course, you know, I can tell you off camera. But.
Yeah, no, that's cool. That's cool. Rosalind, this was awesome.
Right? This was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I enjoyed speaking to you.
Same
So I have like
here.
a little lightning round that I do that's called Right Quick. So I'm gonna just say a word.
Oh boy.
And you tell me what it means to you. There's no right or wrong answer. It's just for fun.
All right, gotcha.
So you could draw it out to a sentence if you want.
Okay.
So I'm gonna say 5 things. All right. Balance.
Money, family, and health.
Okay.
Right.
That's good. That's good. Success.